Hello, everybody. It's a COVID dream come true. I'm quarantined. So here I am. I'm going to give you your lecture notes online today. So the first thing is that the joints are classified in two ways, either structural, what they're made of, or functional, what they do. So looking at the functional classification, we have what is called synarthroses. So syn meaning together or with, arthroses meaning joint. So you should get this into your notes that syn means with or together, and arthroses means joints. So those ones are going to be in your skull, and they're going to join your bones together really, really tightly. And so there's not going to be any movement between those joints. The second class that we're talking about is amphiarthroses. Amphi means on both sides. So if you think of amphibians, they can live on land and on water. They can live on both sides. These are your partial moving joints. So here it's showing the cartilage rings between your vertebrae, so your discs. Those are where your joints are. And then your pubic symphysis is also a place where that is found, so between your hips. Di means across. So diarthroses means that they're fully movable joints. They're going to have quite a bit of movement, and they're mostly found in the limbs, in your arms and your legs. So it would be at your elbow joint, at your knee joint. So it's across the two bones. The second way we classify them are structurally, so what the joints are made of. So we have fibrous joints, cartilaginous joints, and synovial joints. Fibrous joints are really strong, so they are going to connect bones with dense fibrous connective tissue. So when you think about that, fibers, you can just think about, that the fibers are holding everything together. Here's some examples. So bones are united by collagenous fibers. So here's a suture in your skull showing them being held together. They are immobile. You also have sutures that are still immobile, but that provide a little bit more movement. Oops, I didn't have that moved so you could see. Let me move this. I'll move it up here. There we go. So these ones, this is showing your tibia and your fibula. They are connected right here. So syn, so it's going to be able to move a little bit, but it's still pretty much immobile. You don't want your ankle flip-flopping around. Then the cartilage joints, the cartilaginous, they are going to unite bones using cartilage. We have two different types there. We have the synchondrosis, and so chondrocyte, chondro means cartilage, syn coming together. So it's formed where adjacent bones are united by hyaline cartilage. So that would be at the ribs and in the sternum. And then this pubic symphysis right here, where the bones are joined by fibrocartilage with a gap between. This gap is there, and actually this cartilage disintegrates, or not completely, but it dissolves somewhat for childbirth. So we can get the hips to be widened to allow for that. So examples of where this would be. Here's one showing the cartilaginous joint in between your sternum and your clavicle. So again, you want some mobility, but you don't want a ton of it because you want that all to maintain in place so you can have a socket for your humerus. There's the pubic symphysis, and here are between the vertebrae. So the type that we're going to talk the most about are synovial joints. And synovial joints have 6 features. First one, articular cartilage. So articular cartilage is going to be the cartilage that's covering the opposing bones, so preventing the rubbing there. Then we have band-like ligaments that are going to connect one bone to the other bone. So remember, ligaments are the strongest of our connective tissue, and it's going to go from bone to bone. Tendons go from bone to muscle. This is going to form a joint cavity. The joint cavity contains synovial fluid. Synovial fluid would be the lubricant that is going to keep the bones from rubbing into each other. And there's a fibrous joint capsule that surrounds the whole thing. And we have nerves and blood vessels in there as well. So here's an example. You can see here that the articular capsule is going into the scapula, and then it's covering that humerus. Here's another one looking at your elbow joint. So articular cartilage on the outside, and then articular cartilage on the radius and the ulna. Here's another one. So showing the intercarpals of the hand. So the hand bones are all going to have synovial joints around them. So the features of them, we talked about that on the last picture, but I wanted to show it to you the way that, the way the book shows it to you. So this right here would be the acromion of the scapula, and there's a ligament that's going to attach it. And then there's this bursa. The bursa is a synovial fluid containing capsule, and that is going to prevent the rubbing of the bones together. So the bursa, flat and fibrous sacs lined with synovial membranes and filled with synovial fluid. And then we have a sheath over the tendons that also has bursa kind of connected to it that wraps around the tendon itself. And all of this is designed to prevent friction. There it is. We've got the just an enlarged picture of all of it, so you can refer to that. That's figure 5.31 in your book. Here's another example of it where we're looking at a synovial joint in your finger. So the ligament is going to go from bone to bone. It's going to form the joint capsule. We get the fibers around the outside of the joint capsule. We have the synovial membrane that's slippery within. The inside of it is filled with synovial fluid, and that lubricates the joints. So the next thing is looking at the types of joints that provide different movement. So plane, hinge, condylar, saddle, ball and socket, and pivot joints. So the first one, the plane joint, think about waving your hand. So those bones are gliding against each other. The second one, a hinge joint, bending at your elbow. Unilateral movement. The third one, another name for it, is the ellipsoidal joint. This is flexion, like doing a fist pump. So that would be axial movement, so going both ways. Pivot, pronation, and supination. We're going to talk about that. That just means to move your arm this way, and I'll show you this when I get back. Move your arm this way and move your arm that way. Pivot joint, that's in your neck, so turning your head. So this would be your atlas and your axis bones shifting on each other, and I'll show you that again when I come back. Saddle joints. So this movement is specific, and it's called opposition. So you're moving your fingers opposition to each other, and that's requiring a saddle joint. So they move within each other like that. Ball and socket, I'm sure you're most familiar with that. That's your shoulders and your hips. And the last thing we're going to talk about is those movements, and that's what we're going to continue with tomorrow. So flexion is going to be when you're decreasing the angle. So you're measuring this angle here. So decreasing the angle is flexing. Increasing the angle is extending. Hyperextending is going beyond 180. So we can't do it in our elbow, but we can do it in our head. So going beyond 180. Abduction, ab means away. So if you were moving your legs, if you get on that machine and move your legs this way, that's ab. If you move it together, that's add. Ab, add. And then our ball and socket joints are able to do circumduction, moving all the way around in a lasso type of movement. So we'll go into more detail on that tomorrow, but I wanted to start you out with that on the notes. So the next thing, to escape here, let me out. The next thing I want to do is to show you this Quizlet that I put together. So I will share this with you. This is what I want you to work on after the notes today. So you can see here, joint. Whoop. So it gives you the examples here. So I would like you to take notes on these and put them in your notebook. So there's 45 of them here. They go into looking at the joints themselves, and then we start to look at abduction and adduction. So you can stop. You can either put them in your notes for today and then you don't have to take them for tomorrow, but otherwise you can stop at well, actually, I would just get through them. Yeah, there's enough there. So that's what I want you to do when you're done with that. Okay, so this will be on Classroom, and I apologize for the unforeseen leaving the class today. I don't know what else to say.